What is going on YouTube? Welcome back to my channel, Austin Davis. In today's video, we have Mike Andes from Augusta Lawn Care and the Mike Andes YouTube channel where he has over 150,000 subscribers. We're going to talk about everything from how he got started in small business, specifically lawn care. This is a guy that has over 150 franchise locations all across Canada, the United States, and even Australia. Has generated tens of millions of dollars in his service business. So we're going to kind of get into how he got started, how he scaled, and what is going on in this dude's brain. Okay, so I'm super excited for this video. And if you guys get any kind of entertainment or value from this video, do hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. I'd very much appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get into the interview. Mike Andes. Okay, so I've been telling, I told my YouTube channel that we were going to have you on for a little bit of a talk and whatnot. I first caught wind of you about a year ago, and you just popped up on my feed because, you know, I'm always kind of going on there trying to learn new tricks and whatnot as far as operations go and how to, you know, keep on scaling further. Then I came across one of your videos. Obviously, you're in the lawn care service industry, but kind of a different industry. And I started watching your videos, and it's quite clear that you're kind of like a savant when it comes to like the service industry and more of the systems and operations go. So I really started to watch a lot of your videos. And then now to learn that you have like over 100 franchise locations. So I mean, like, what in the world? How does that come to be?
Yeah, like in terms of the service industries, I think it's really unique because really it breaks down really simply to whether you're talking about fencing, roofing, you're talking about cleaning, lawn care, pressure washing, etc. Really, when it comes down to home services, there's really one objective that we're doing. If you actually break it down to like the simplest piece, and that is we are trying to take labor in the form of an hour's worth of someone's time, and we're going to pay that person $20 an hour. Let's just call it. The whole goal of our business is simply to turn that $20 per hour labor into $100 per hour to the customer.
Right.
And that comes in the form of systems, equipment, training them, etc. But really, that's the entire premise of home services because it's simply selling time to customers. And we give them systems, we give them procedures, we give them training, we give them equipment, we give them trucks, we give them uniforms, really all so that one transaction happens. And for the vast majority of us, that's why we don't tell our customers how much we charge per hour, because they would lose their mind over that. But what they won't lose their mind over is the fact that we are extremely efficient, save them a lot of time. But that's really the whole essence of the home services industry. Take a labor's hour and somehow upgrade it to being worth 5 times as much. If you can do that, you have yourself a home service business and you can make a lot of money.
Got it. Yeah, and that all sounds like it makes sense. I guess a lot of people that are watching like my channel and whatnot, they're just getting started. And, you know, a lot of what you say, and even sometimes like when I watch what you say, sometimes it can kind of go over my head. So it's like, I'm wanting to go to a lot of these like conferences and mentorship classes with you and like all the, you know, not even you, just a lot of other people in there. Cause like, you know, I'm at a level and I feel like for me to get to here, it's, you know, a lot of more learning that I need to do. But for someone who's like way down here to kind of comprehend all that, you know, it's like you almost got to walk before you run. So how does someone get from like, you know, the bottom level to really where they can get some traction? I mean, you know, because like, you know, a lot of what you're saying can be kind of complicated or simpler depending on who you're talking to. But how do you kind of make sense of that for someone just starting out?
I think it's determining first and foremost what action is it got you to where you are at today. Let's say you have 5 new customers and you just got started. Well, how did you get those 5 customers? Was it on a Facebook post? Was it on a Nextdoor post? Was it you talking to your friends and family? And do that 100 times a day, right? Alex Hormozi talks about, you know, a rule of 100. Like, just do the same thing 100 times a day, and eventually more of that result will happen. So if you
Right.
posted on Facebook and you got several of your first customers, post every single day, find more Facebook groups, go talk to more people. And you keep doing that over the course of time. And now what will happen is you'll create a new problem for yourself, because at first the problem in your business is converting typically capital into leads. Well, once you have a lot of these leads coming in, now you're going to have another problem. You're going to go hire someone, and that's going to become in the form of labor problems. And then you get enough laborers, eventually you're going to hit another, you know, capacity and constraint, and that's going to be leadership. And so I have this framework I call the 4L framework. It's like liquidity, liquidity, leads, labor, and leadership. And you basically keep going in this cycle of as you grow a business, you're going to keep hitting these constraints. And so if your first issue, your first problem is finding more leads, either you're going to do it with liquidity, more money going and buying ads. And if you don't have the liquidity, you're going to have to go put the sweat equity in to go get those leads. And as time goes on, and even for yourself, Austin, like as you grow next year, getting that first employee, getting that second employee, that third employee. Now you get a labor constraint. And then you get enough of those employees together, you eventually have a leadership problem where you're going to have to develop yourself as a leader to actually manage all those team members. So I would say, keep doing what you're currently doing. And if someone's just getting started for that first customer, do it 10 more times. Maybe you'll get a second or third customer, and keep doing that just over and over. And for some people, that's door hangers, knocking on doors, whatever that action is, just keep doing that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I talk about that like as far as like in my programs and whatnot, because I get a lot of people like we have a power washing business owners Facebook group. There's a little over 60,000 people in that group, and we get a lot of people in there that are just getting started, and they're like, "Man, I did Facebook ads, spent $100, did nothing happen. This sucks." Or like they put out a couple of yard signs, nothing happened. That sucks. With every single piece of marketing, I was like, dude, like the chances are whatever you're doing, it's probably going to be 10 or 20 or even 100 times that amount of volume. Like you said, the Alex Hormozi deal, where you can even start getting traction. It's like when you send out like 100 EDDM, like postcard mails, it's probably 100 is probably not going to do it. You're probably going to need like 10,000. I mean, to really see, and chances are like any amount of effort that you think it's going to take, like multiply that by 10, and that's really the amount, and then with whatever it is. So like whatever's working for you, like I agree, like you need to do 10 or 20 times that amount, stop doing what's not working, double down on what it is working. So I like that a lot. So from what I understand, you were in med school and you got out of med school and somehow landscaping I mean, those are like two different like spheres of the world. So how does that happen?
Yeah, so I was 11 years old when I started mowing grass. My brother and I, we started Andy's Lawn Care. And so we knew we were going to go to college early. And so that was our way to save up because our parents didn't have the money. And so that's how I paid my way through college. I started college when I was 13 years old. I thought I was going to become a surgeon. When I got my undergrad degree, I was like 17, 18 years old. Went to Africa for 6 weeks, volunteered a bunch of clinics, medical centers, orphanages, etc. Came back to the US, was like super rocking, like super happy because I was like, this is going to be the best thing ever. I'd been doing all sorts of surgeries and birthing and worked a lot in the burn unit over in Kenya where I was at in Africa. And yeah, it was a tremendous experience. But coming back to the US, I was like, hey, I don't want to be doing the same procedure for the next 40 years of my career. And especially if you're going to spend the next 10 years in fellowships and residencies, et cetera, to actually become a surgeon, I'm going to be doing the same 4 or 5 things for the rest of my career. I didn't want that. And so that is when I decided I was going to go, drop out, started mowing grass again, but took it seriously. I was 18 years old. That's when I started Augusta Lawn Care. Fast forward to today, we're almost 10 years. And 4 years ago, we started franchising. So now we have 150 locations around the US, Canada, and Australia. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the summary, I would say.
Wow. So what made you kind of want to go into the franchise model? I mean, because I mean, a lot of people, they're content with just owning a business, whether they're a solo operator and just having, a good profitable margin business, or they're just scaling it out to where they're not on the truck anymore and they're home. So, I mean, at what point where you're, you just want to go ahead and do that? Was it more so to give more? Because from what I understand from your YouTube videos, it's a lot of just giving a lot of business owners the blueprint and giving them like an actual business model that works. And if you can work it in your framework, it can work work for both of us. And I also understand that like with your franchise model, it's not a percentage base. It's more of like a flat fee. So like you're not like any way incentivized for them to go out. Like the more they make, you're going to make like this, like the flat model. So I think that's pretty respectable. But would you say it's more so just to give business owners the blueprint on how to go out there?
Well, really, the fact of the matter is like I've made videos for a long time, just like, camera to face talking about exactly all the systems that we use at Augusta. Few people would implement them, things like pay for performance, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what I realized is that people really started to pay attention when we would compete with them. And so I look at Augusta Lawn Care, like our whole mission and goal is to change the level of professionalism in the landscape industry. To do that, I think that certain systems need to be adhered to and become commonplace because the customer expects it. The customer expects their phone to be answered. They expect a credit card on file. They expect professionalism. They expect a truck that's wrapped and uniformed employees.
Right.
They expect these things. And so in order for that change actually to happen, I saw the best way to do that was to simply compete with every landscaping company. And so, doing the franchise model is not necessarily the most profitable. It's definitely not the fastest way to grow. And it's like a completely different business than the actual business of mowing grass. However, every time we move into a new market, I can see over the course of 2 to 3 years just how many people are coming from that area and starting to do things like pay for performance or fixing their website or getting registered and licensed. And that's like the whole goal of the company is to just change the level of professionalism. And I do that by forcing competition to make that happen. And so we want to get to 1,000 locations. And I think if I do that, there'll be enough pressure on the industry that we will have moved the needle a little bit.
Interesting. Okay. It's crazy because like I hear you talk, and I watch your YouTube videos. By the way, I love your YouTube videos where you go and you kind of like flip around these businesses. Like I saw the one with the power washing company, like Mr. Sudsy, and I saw like a bunch of the landscape ones, like gold content and gold content. But what kind of role do you feel like mentorship has, to where you've gotten right now? Because surely, you came from, you were doing medical stuff, then you got into the business stuff, and would you say you just learned a lot quickly, or did you pay for mentorship? Did you go to courses? I mean, how do you figure out all this stuff in relatively a short amount of time? I know you've been cutting grass since 11 years old, but surely you weren't this until maybe you were an adult, correct? Because you went to med
Yeah,
school
like
and you came back.
yeah, so I was 18 when I started Augusta. I still remember in my room typing in landscape business course, trying to find something more business oriented. Again, that was 10 years ago. Now there's a lot more options. A lot of better creators have put out content and courses, et cetera. But at the time, there wasn't anything. And so, several years later, I would actually start landscapebusinesscourse.com as literally a way to kind of come full circle and hopefully train that other 18-year-old that's looking for that information. Because there was a lot of information in terms of like what mower to buy,
Right.
what truck to buy, equipment. But I just want to know the business. Like how do I market? How do I get customers? And so in terms of mentorship, like it's different levels, right? Like typically the unlock to get into certain rooms is through mentorship,
Yeah.
money, courses, paid groups, conferences, etc. And so in the perfect world, I would be able to share everything that I think about on YouTube. The problem is this. First off, me just talking to a camera doesn't get a lot of clicks. For example, you mentioned the turnaround videos. They take a huge amount of time. It'd be much easier if I just
I couldn't
literally
even
sat down with
imagine
a
that.
camera
Yeah.
and just like started talking to about how to run a business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one would ever see me, and it doesn't get caught in the algorithm, and that makes sense because no one wants to just watch a talking head. And so, but the bottom line is, when it comes to building a business, those boring principles are what is needed. And so, how do you get those actual principles? Typically, it's locked behind some sort of a paywall. And it's not about the paying of the money, it's about the access you get. And so, like, as you grow your business, typically I recommend is like get as much free content as possible. There's a ton out there. If you want it more chronological, typically you're going to want a course. If you want access to people that are way ahead of you, you're typically going to need to pay for some sort of mastermind, conference, something like that. And so, it took me a long time to actually find my coach. It's only been the past year that I've found an actual coach that I work with. And then I pay a lot of money to get access to other rooms that I want to be part of. And I'm a big believer that like if you do those things, your performance on the court will show. And
Yeah.
so what you do in practice will show what on the court. And so if someone ever looks at someone who's doing great things on the court, it's like they probably have a great coach. They probably have great people they're looking up to and they're watching film and they're really analyzing their sport and their craft. And I think the same thing is true in business. It's like get someone else to put another set of eyes on what you're doing and
Yeah.
diagnose and triage what can be fixed. And that's the fastest way to improve.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that's a good analogy as far as like the coach and the player, because there's a lot of like bad, there's a lot like I guess a lot of bad juju or bad, inklings out there with people that sell courses, they sell information. And, as far as like this year is like, I feel like that's like my next step. Like I need to go out there and actually pay for the information. So like some people would think it's like crazy to, pay someone like $1,500 for an hour coaching call or, I'm looking at that and I was like, dude, like that is the like it's not necessarily just a paywall. It's just like if you're either going to spend a lot of time to figure it out through years, and that also includes spending money because you're probably going to waste a lot of money, or you can just go ahead and pay the money now and just have the answers right there at your beck and call, you know. So
It's
dude,
just
I agree.
amazing to me that people think that, but that yet we're willing to spend $20,000 a year plus
Yeah.
living expenses for a piece of paper that we spend 4 years
Yeah,
going after, right? And so
exactly.
it's I think that's switching. I think it's changing as people realize that like paying the $1,500 for the online course is potentially what took someone 15 years to figure out. And you're
Exactly.
unlocking that in the matter of a couple months, and you're not locked down a specific location, and you're not listening to a professor that only knows the theory but has never done it in practice. So
Yeah,
I think a lot of this will change in time. And unfortunately, it's being propped up by a government that keeps subsidizing the current
exactly.
educational system. But I think that'll change in time.
Yeah, and it's like, like I got my business degree. Well, the person that you learn business from doesn't even own a business, dude. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like I've always talked, said that. One thing I find that was really interesting watching your business flip around videos, and because this is something that happens all the time in the power washing business. It's case in point on the Facebook groups, my Facebook group, and a bunch of other power washing Facebook groups is you get a lot of people that start the business, and there's two ways to go about it. There's the way that I kind of teach it, and there's the way that a lot of people do it. A lot of people have like fancy object syndrome. I know you've talked about it, where they start a business, they get excited about something, they go out and finance a bunch of stuff. So I think it's funny. Well, it's not funny because someone's getting affected by it, but what's happening is people go in the business and they finance all this equipment thinking that they need it, and it just sits around. And I see it all the time in my Facebook groups. Like people are buying, $20 or $30,000 trailers, and next thing you know, a couple of months later, it's being sold that looks brand new, and they're selling it for pennies on the dollar because you can't really sell something for top dollar that's had a bunch of water and bleach ran through it, like a pressure washing trailer. And sure enough, people get into the business, they get so excited, they go and finance it from like a firm or these little lease companies, and they realize that they say it's a business expense and it's a business loan, but it's not creating anything. It's just a fancy object in the driveway. And so I'm pretty big on, and I get a lot of hate sometimes too, where like, Austin, why are you starting with, you know, like my way of teaching it is like whatever money you have to start, 40% goes to the equipment and 60% goes to your marketing because you need some kind of buffer for a good website company, your print marketing, your shirts, get all that stuff out of the way. And if that means you start with like a $400 power washer, then that's what you start with. But at least you don't have a debt or a loan payment. Like I think we're in kind of a loan and debtor, we're a debtor nation right now, and it's kind of affecting the way people do it. And that could be the difference between someone starting and having success in this business and then like literally crashing and burning because they get so overwhelmed with debt on top of the debt that most people already have. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Like I think to keep it simple, it's like if we actually boil down to what the home service industry is, we are taking a $20 per hour labor and we're trying to charge $100 per hour for their service. If we think about it from that perspective, and we think about it from the perspective that the customer is hiring us to solve a problem, and that's the reason they're willing to pay this markup of $20. We're literally marking up an hour of labor to $100. That's what the customer is paying for. They're not paying for anything between that. They simply expect the service to get done and the problem to be solved. Does that piece of equipment make that service happen better? That's when the value starts to get added to the equation of whether or not you should buy this piece of equipment, right? Do I need this trailer in order to take this $20 per hour labor and turn it into $100? No, I could use what I currently have. I only use it 2 days a week. I can use it more. Great. We should not buy it. Do I need this brand new trailer in order to be able to get more customers? No, I'm only using the other one currently for 2 days. I can use it more. The bottom line is if we don't have any value added to this equation of $20 per hour, moving it to $100 per hour, if it doesn't actually meaningfully change that, we shouldn't be buying new equipment. We shouldn't be buying equipment at all. And that's when it comes to asset utilization. Is like, how often are you actually using that piece of equipment? Out of the 24 hours in a day, times that by 7, whatever it is per week, how many hours are you actually using it? Some people will be like, well, I use it almost every week. Well, what, for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes? Like, what is the actual asset utilization for all your trucks and equipment? And I think it's amazing how people will buy like 4 trucks and really they probably get away with 2. But it's a matter of optics because the business looks bigger. They hire more people because they can say they have more people on their salary
Right.
in their payroll instead of just like, what is required to solve the customer's problem? What is required to take $20 per hour of labor and turn it to 100? And again, the customer is paying for the problem to be solved. If that is not
That's
done
it.
more efficiently with this new truck, it shouldn't be purchased.
Yeah. Not only that, I see a lot of people on I see a lot of people on your videos that they don't only get like the fancy Kubota, but they're also getting like brand new like personal trucks too. Yeah, it's interesting when people start going down that path. But would you say like that's one of I mean, as far as like when I'm watching your videos, like your business turnaround videos, that's kind of like the key thing I see. It's a lot of debt on a lot of equipment that's not getting used right. And like when I talk to like people in my program, people on my channel in the Facebook groups, like everyone has a problem. Like everyone has a lead problem. Like if they could snap their fingers and any of their problems gets fixed, it's leads. But would you say the businesses that you kind of help, is it more lead problems? I mean, what are the common like the couple common things that a lot of people are struggling with right now?
Yeah, going back to kind of what I call the 4L framework, right? You either have a liquidity problem, you have a leads problem, you have a labor problem, or you have a leadership problem. Most people think they have a leads problem. And we've
Right.
gotten into this world, and most of it is because we've been sold this idea from the marketing engines, whether it be online or people from Google contacting you, Google, people from print, newspaper, whatever, convincing us that we need more leads.
Right.
And somehow we have been convinced that getting more leads will solve the problem. When in 95% of the situations that I walk into in these turnarounds, I am not talking about leads. The vast majority of the time, I'm talking about liquidity problems, i.e., they have bad debt, bad fixed expenses, bad overhead structures, bad pricing. Secondly, labor. There's another problem. They're not hiring people correctly, not training them correctly. They don't have onboarding procedures or leadership. They have absolutely no structure. They're overriding their general managers. They have no ability to be able to communicate effectively with their team. These are the things that are actually holding the businesses back. And so most people look at leads first. And if you actually believe that growing your business is going to solve your problem, there's two things I'd ask. One, is it a foundation that's strong enough that if you actually grew the business, it would actually withstand the pressure and pain of growth? And secondly, let's assume that that first thing is true and you actually do want to grow the business. The next thing is, do you actually have a leads problem or do you have a follow-up problem? Because I look at most home service business owners and I look at how many leads they have and they say, well, I closed, I got 100 leads and I closed 35 of them. Great. You have a 35% close ratio. You could double the size of your business if you just moved that from 35 to 70 without
Right.
getting a single new lead. You'd simply convert more of the leads that you have. And so I think that in our home services, that I can, with a great generalization, say that we do not have a leads problem. We have a follow-up problem. And the vast majority of us spending more time on creating a follow-up system would be far better off than spending more money on
Yeah.
marketing.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think like in my program too, and like what I talk a lot about on YouTube is just like everyone is so concerned about like leads and then like they're getting priced out. I didn't get the customer because it was the price. And it's just like when you really dig into it, like a lot of these people have a lot of things that they can improve on just internally, like one, communication. Like I'm big on like what I like to talk about on my channel is like the whole sales, the whole show, what happens when you talk to a customer. Like there's a lot of customers out there that aren't really concerned about the price. Maybe you didn't smell right, maybe you didn't look right, you didn't build value in your services correctly. You came in there, you came out, and the customer just had a kind of a bad feeling about you. And so that's kind of what I'm big on is just more of like the sales and the follow up because I agree, like, if you look at, my whole last year's and whatnot, or anyone's last year, as far as estimates go, there's probably a huge discrepancy. I mean, people are missing a lot of business, and it doesn't come down to they missed it because of the price. Chances are they either didn't follow up, they're not, you do commercial estimates and whatnot. You can't just walk in there and say the price. Like a lot of people aren't really looking at the price. Like, can I trust you? Do I see value in your services? Do I trust you in or around my property? Would I let you inside my home? Like there's so many things that people are worried about. And so I'm kind of more focused on like how do you build cultivation with like your like relationships, like talking to your customers and like selling them on yourself, like and not leaving until they're on the schedule and just, spending 5 minutes with them as opposed to spending like 15 minutes, like building rapport. So that's kind of where I'm more on increasing that close ratio for sure.
And there are other costs associated with our services other than the price. And I think if people understand this, it's like there are other costs associated with our service other than the price. And so one of the biggest costs that people don't take into account is how long it takes to get an estimate. And for the vast majority of our premium customers and the customers that we all want, their time is valuable. And so saving them time is actually the fastest way to close the deal because the cost of their time is far more valuable than the price they pay for the invoice. And
That's
so
true. I can see that.
there are other costs involved in terms of like that's why some people like things like eco-friendly or green, is because like they attribute the cost of hurting the environment or having chemicals on their property as a large enough cost to outweigh the increased price. And
Yeah.
so I think the differentiation between cost and price is important, and saving the customer time, getting to their property quickly, doing it over the phone. Better yet, that you can do it on the website and get pricing immediately and close the deal right there. These are ways of saving the cost to which most of our customers who are ideal value the most, which is time.
Okay, got it. We only have a couple minutes left, but I want to capitalize on what you just said, because that kind of goes what you just said about online estimates versus in person, because this is something that I like to teach about. I don't believe that someone who's just getting started, who's more often than not probably struggling, they got into business because they're looking for a change, they're probably tight on money. I don't believe that that person can afford to just cross their fingers and hope that they accept an online estimate without seeing, talking to them, or building a relationship or trust, as opposed to they can do the same thing with a company who's a lot more reputable, has reviews and pictures, something that someone that's just starting out doesn't have. So, how I like to say is like, I don't like, even today, I still don't like doing, I mean, maybe when you're scaled out at that particular level where you literally have so much business that you could just turn down people and still be okay. Like I'm the kind of person that would tell people like, no, you need to build your business and you need to be proactive. Like go out there and meet your customer and like get the deal done. Like put the dang customer on your, like if you're mowing your weekly content, you can't afford not to. Why would you just, pray and hope that they'll just accept it without, take matters into your own hands. But I can totally agree. Like if you're scaled out to that point, you would almost have no choice to run it that way. But I know you say like, there's estimators out there. So I know some businesses run it like that, where they go out and actually meet the customer and whatnot. But for someone just starting out, I would think that doing it in person is probably the most beneficial way to do it. What would you say about
Yeah,
that?
it really comes down to like what's your strengths. If you're really good at selling in person, potentially, yes, your close ratio might be greater in person. But my next question is, how many times have you come into an estimate though, and they've already finished the job, or they say, oh, I've already got this taken care of. And so really a good medium, I think, for someone that is very concerned about every single estimate because they don't have as many, I totally understand that. I would try to get the contact information, then give them a price. And if they decline it, you still have their information to go do the in-person estimate. And so that way you deliver immediately. You're able to get the person, because again, the highest value client has the highest premium on their time. And I actually met with someone the other day, and they were talking about the cleaning service they were trying to get. And they literally said, it will cost me more to take 30 minutes away from the office and go meet the estimator at my house to look at the janitorial cleaning. It'll cost me more in that 30 minutes of my time compared to the entire year of their service. That's crazy. What that
Yeah.
means is if someone would just do it over the phone or be able to just one click, they would literally be able to charge twice as much and easily get this job because the customer's value on their time is so high.
Yeah. There's definitely people, there's no question that there's people like that. I mean, those that sounds like, ultra, not ultra, but certainly like high net worth. Like they're not leaving. Like, I can't even talk to you right now. Just tell me what the price is and we're good to go, assuming that you're reputable and everything. So, I guess there's a spot for everything because there's all different types of customers. And like, I think you definitely should like target exactly who your ideal customer is. But yeah, I really like what you said there.
I think the big thing is like when it comes to home services, it's just simply a matter of what is the current constraint I'm facing right now. And I think for most people, they think it's leads. And for the vast majority of us getting started, that is the problem because we have no other problems until we have customers. And I think for anyone that's under $100,000, it is a matter of get customers. That's the only thing we should be focused on. And I think the only things that really drive your business forward is marketing and sales. And then as you get employees, then it's about teamwork and leadership, et cetera. Like those are the things that really matter. Everything else is a distraction. Right? What type of nozzle should be on your hose? What type of tank you have? What type of truck you have? All of that is a distraction to getting more customers. And then eventually, as you grow, getting in team members and growing a team. Those are the only two things that grow a business. You do those things together and you actually do that over and over and repeat it over and over. You'll figure out the insurance and how to do your banking and what credit card to get and all these other dotted I's and crossed T's that we all spend all of our time on. When if we just got more customers and hired people, we'd have a business that's actually worth something to make money and we'll figure out all these other problems. So a lot of us just get caught in our own head. I include myself in this as well as business owners when it's like create value, get customers, hire team members. You do that repeatedly, you now have value. And guess what? If you're like, well, I don't want to keep getting employees, guess what? Raise prices. If you don't have enough trucks, but you don't want to keep growing, guess what you do? Raise prices, hit capacity and raise prices. When you have so much work that you need to either go buy trucks or hire more people, raise prices. If you do that, you will literally almost always immediately make your business so much more profitable. A business that's struggling can literally, in a matter of a few weeks, if they're at capacity, be able to raise prices and dramatically increase profits. And it's definitely the thing that in this industry we don't do enough of, and that is charge what we're worth. And understand that if you have a customer, especially a recurring customer, the stickiness of home services is tremendous. It's why I believe in the industry so much. If you do a good job and you take care of your customer, they don't want to go out and get 5 more bids. They don't want to leave you. So they're willing to put up with an extra 10, 15, 20% markup and increase in price because you've done a great job and they don't want to waste time going elsewhere. 20% extra price added could literally double your profits. There's few industries where you can actually double your profits tomorrow without doing anything. And that's why I'm such a big believer in home services. I think it's like, looked down on, but I think it done right, it can be extremely profitable.
Yeah, I think power washing is known for having some damn good margin. I think that's why a lot of people are doing it. It's not as popular as landscaping, but I would think landscaping is a bit easier to get into. Have you ever looked into doing power washing, or are you stuck with landscaping? Or are we going to see an Augusta power washing out there?
Maybe one day, we'll see. But it's just a matter of, I really do believe that home service is a very simple concept. It's like you can plug and play what services you offer, but it's ultimately we're selling labor to the customer. What degree of risk you have and what complexity of equipment you need, what complexity of certification you need for things like chemicals can increase your margins. And so for things like in lawn care, if we do spraying and chemicals, pest control, etc., higher margins. Also, more that's required to turn that $20 labor into $100 per hour. And so, in my opinion, it's just like that's the boiled down basic, theme of it. The easier that middle process is, typically the lower your margins because there's more competition. So for mowing, a lot more competition because turning the 20 into 100 is easier, less equipment required, less training involved, etc.
Well, we're fixing to wrap it up, Mike. Where can people find you if people want to look you up other than YouTube?
Other than YouTube, just MikeAndes.com.
Okay.
But there's a lot of different stuff on there we do for different home services, etc. And a lot of free stuff on there too in terms of content. I know you mentioned Mr. Sudsy. We do turnaround videos on YouTube, so watch those and hopefully you get something out of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna be fixing to go to the next. I don't even care if it's landscaping. The next is it Landscaper Con or what is
No,
it?
we're gonna change it to home services. So
Home
everyone's welcome to come.
services. Yes. I watched the
This is the
last video.
first. This is the first place I'll actually announce. We know the dates, so it's January 16th to 18th, 2025. It's a year away.
Okay.
But it is going to be for all home services, and you'll probably see announcements coming out in the next couple of weeks. But this is the first place I've actually mentioned it. So
Definitely will be there because I watched their last video. It was an hour lecture, I think you called it, when you were up there talking about landscaping. But dude, it was so transferable, and I was sitting there taking notes the whole time. So, Mike, I really appreciate you getting on here. It was a wealth of knowledge to hear you talk and whatnot, and I'm sure we'll be chatting in the future. So I really appreciate you having us on.
my pleasure, brother. Take care. Have a good one.